Good evening. It's a special pleasure and extraordinary honor, I think, to receive recognition from your hometown colleagues. It's more meaningful than most of the recognition we get. Sort of before I begin, let me introduce my wife, Barbara Lukaszewski. Barbara is right over there. 2014 is kind of a remarkable year for the two of us. It is our 50th wedding anniversary year. It's Barbara's 50th anniversary of graduating from the dental hygiene program at the University of Minnesota, with honors, I might add. It's the 40th anniversary of in 14 days, it's the 40th anniversary of my graduation from Metropolitan State University, at the time known as Metropolitan State College. I'm actually graduate number 81. There are now 46,000 graduates from Metropolitan State University. It's the 40th anniversary of my entry into the profession of public relations, this month, as a matter of fact. It's almost the 30th anniversary of my being accredited by PRSA. It's the 20th anniversary of my becoming a fellow from the PRSA. Got to be 20 years in to get a fellow. And it's the 25th anniversary of my being accredited by the IABC. Although Barbara retired in 2010, together we ran our businesses here starting in 1978 through the entire 25-year period that we lived in the New York area and worked from there. And I like to always mention Barbara because the truth is, in my life, I think everything that I've done that's meaningful and useful and helpful has come from Barbara. It's kind of an amazing story, which I would love to tell you, but we haven't time. But it's an amazing thing. Truth is, she's had this enormous influence on what I've done all of these years, and she's in a deserved retirement. My public relations career began essentially as an adult intern in the office of Governor Wendell Anderson in 1973 while I was attending Metropolitan State University. Following my graduation in 1974, I was hired by the governor's office. It was also in 1974 that I first met David, Spear, and Don Padilla. Their firm had been retained by the governor's office to manage the public affairs for the Midwestern Governors Conference, which was being held in Minneapolis at that time, headquartered in the IDS. And one of my early assignments in that project was to manage the press room in that circumstance. For me, it was the first time that I actually worked with public relations people who came from the private sector. I'd worked with public information officers from government up to that point in time. And at that particular time, Padilla and Spear was a dominant agency in the city, and Dave and Don were dominant figures in the profession at that time. In 1979, Barbara and I published my first book called the Minnesota Publicity Handbook and Media Directory. Barbara did the media directory, and I did the publicity part. And when we left the Twin Cities in 1986 to go to New York, Padilla and Spear actually acquired this book and sold it as a part of their program called Publicity Central. And actually, a couple of people tonight have mentioned they still have this book from all those years ago. As it turns out, this is the first 12 books that I authored. And the motivation for each of these books really has been, as Joel stated, really, I was learning things so rapidly and in such interesting places, it just felt like I really wanted to share this stuff, and this is what I've spent most of my career basically doing, or at least half my career, so to speak. And this is where PRSA comes in. I think would not be here today talking with you this way if it hadn't been for the Public Relations Society of America giving me a platform, both locally, nationally, and sometimes in larger quarters, to talk about the things I was thinking, the things that seemed useful to me to tell you about. At this stage of the game in my particular career, the most common question I get is, well, the two really, what drives me, what keeps me going? And those I know who are retired say, why in the heck are you still doing this, for heaven's sake? My biggest career driver really has been the belief that I have really yet to do the most important thing I'm ever going to do in this life. I keep looking for it. I'm hoping that it keeps looking for me. It's out there somewhere. But in the meantime, I get to do lots of other interesting things when I'm waiting for this great big thing to come along. I see clients and coworkers who have the same aspirations, and many of you do as well. One of the more frequently asked questions I get is about my plan. How did I organize to get where it is I apparently have gotten? And I suspect my answer is pretty similar to yours. Even at 72, I'm still trying to figure a plan out. So I figure, you know, if you've done this already, you figured this out, see me afterwards. I need some help in this, all right? Well, I think one thing that's amazed both Barbara and I is returning to the Twin Cities after 25 years of being away. You know, you suddenly realize that a generation has passed while you were gone. And so there are lots of new faces tonight. We're new faces to many of you, perhaps. It's a very interesting and important experience for us to become reacclimated to living in the Twin City area. But I think Barbara and I would agree that we've had a very interesting life for a couple of kids, really, from Robbinsdale, Minnesota. I think one of the most important things, and interesting things that happened to me in my career, is that right from the very beginning, when I began publishing, when I started publishing when I was working for the state of Minnesota, I would get notes from people commenting on the things that they liked about what I was doing or whether they learned, that sort of thing. And this has happened throughout my career. And I bring it up because just this week, as a matter of fact, a client I haven't worked with in 20 years called me. During Hurricane Sandy in Connecticut, their office was destroyed. And they're just now moving into their new office quarters, and the employees were allowed into the old building. And she went to her old desk, which had been uncovered for debris, and in the back drawer, she found an envelope that I had mailed to her in 2009 that she hadn't opened yet. She opened it, and inside was a book. I published a book in 2008, and I'd written a nice inscription to her in that book, and she said, I read the inscription, I cried and had to call you. And I mention it tonight only because I think that, you know, if there's one thing that my career has exemplified that might be useful to you, is this notion of reaching out and recognizing the things that people accomplish. Just a simple note of thank you. I keep all these things. And I find, as I talk about this, that other people keep them too. You probably do. I look at it, you know, it's our responsibility to move through and improve the professional level of the organization of PRSA in our profession. And I found over the years, this is one extraordinarily interesting way to do it that you can do as well. So maybe the lesson learned from my career, if there is one, is reaching out and helping other people from their perspective achieve the things they want to get done. And I guess the moral to our story is, as it turned out, you can take the kids out of the prairie, but you can't take the prairie out of the kids. So let me conclude just by saying, if there's any way that I can be of help to you, I'm only a phone call or an email away, and I would love to be of help to you if you can. And if you're out there searching for that thing that gets your plan together, or that particular process or idea or concept or challenge that you're interested in, call me up. Well, maybe we can search for it together. On behalf of Barbara and myself, thank you very much. This is a really incredibly wonderful welcome home. Thank you.